They're allowing them in sort of in dribs and drabs, accompanied by staff from search and rescue teams to pick up as many things as they can from their houses and run out again. So I spoke to a couple of families yesterday who got 5 minutes to run in and literally grab as much as they could from their house.
Let's head to Iceland, where people in the southwest of the country are still on edge as they wait to see if a volcano will erupt. The fishing town of Grindavik was evacuated a week ago, with the Icelandic Met Office saying there is a significant likelihood that an eruption is going to occur. Our reporter Nick Ellerby is on the ground in Iceland. He's just south of Reykjavik. So, Nick, this really is a waiting game, isn't it? What's the latest?
Good afternoon. Yeah, it's a very, very tense waiting game at the moment. Those families you mentioned from Grindavik have all been evacuated and have moved to stay with either friends or rented accommodation around this southwestern peninsula. Are all on tenterhooks because, you know, the Met Office and lots of experts, volcanic experts here, are all kind of have different opinions. What's happened over the last week is we've seen huge amounts of earthquakes and volcanic activity under the ground where this magma has come up into this giant fissure. So there's a huge volcano which actually erupted a couple of years ago, when that whole system is now seeing a lot more movement. The magma we know right now is about 800 meters under the ground, which is very, very close. And the last couple of days, the actual sort of volcano, the movement has calmed down a lot, which could mean one of two things. Either it's all going to come down and hopefully not come up, or it's about ready to erupt, and we could see it sort of spraying up like a shaken up Coke can. And the problem here is it's right next to those population centres, so this huge town which could be wiped off the map. And you've also got a power plant, a geothermal and hydroelectric power plant, which heats 30,000 homes here in southwest Iceland with hot water. And if that gets covered in lava, you've got nearly 10% of the population of this country who are going to be without heating this Christmas. But the real worry is those people who live in Grindavik, who certainly won't have any kind of normal Christmas this year.
So how is it being handled by the authorities, Nick? Are there, I don't know, vans going round with information being boomed out over a loudspeaker? Are there broadcasts on radio and television?
So everyone's signed up to an information service, so they keep getting updates and alerts. So what's going on at the moment really is that they're allowing the residents, there are, I think, between 3,500 and 4,000 residents in this town. They're allowing them in sort of in dribs and drabs, accompanied by staff from search and rescue teams to pick up as many things as they can from their houses and run out again. So I spoke to a couple of families yesterday who got 5 minutes to run in and literally grab as much as they could from their house. And they were telling me there was a number of things they still needed to get. And this other family I met this morning actually at the motorway checkpoint, they got another 15 minutes today. So they were able to grab, you know, some of the stuff they might need for the next few months, but also some really precious family heirlooms. So the mum lost her mother in August, and there's this baptism gown that all her grandkids have been baptized in, and she forgot to pick it up that first time, but she has got it now, which is good. So the authorities, you know, as much as they sort of don't know where and when this thing might erupt, they are just getting in as many people as they can into the town to pick up their things. And in the next few days, if there's no more activity, they'll allow people to sort of go in and empty their houses. But as I mentioned, all the heating is hot water, pipes under the ground. There are huge cracks. People may have seen the images online or on TV, huge cracks in the town itself. The discrepancy is up to 2 meters from one side to the other in some places, and all the hot water pipes have just shattered, so there's smoke coming out of the ground. And if they are allowed back in to live there again, they probably won't be able to rebuild all that for another 18 months, up to 2 years.
But Nick, would they want to go back and live there again? Wouldn't there always be a sense that if this can happen now, it could happen in the future?
I think that those two camps are split there. In terms of the people I've spoken to a number of people who said they're scared about what's happening, because this area, the Reykjanes Peninsula in southwest Iceland, which is a lot of people, Reykjavik on the top, the Keflavik airport, the main airport on the northwest, and then this town of Grindavik on the south, has not really seen any volcanic activity for 800 years. But then in the last 3 years, they've had 4 different eruptions. The authorities say that means they're now planning for a sort of a new cycle and possibly decades more activity. So you've got half the people of the town, I think, who don't want to go back and are trying to relocate permanently. And then another half, because, you know, they're pretty hardy souls up here, and whoever lives in Grindavik likes it because it's a little bit cut off. So I think a lot of people will, if they are allowed, will make their way back as soon as they can. But that's probably not going to be for at least another 18 months, really.
Yeah, it's quite a thought, isn't it? Getting 15 minutes to go to what may have been a very, very important place in your life and just grab what you consider to be the most significant items that you could never bear to lose. I think I'd really struggle with that, actually.
Yeah, well, the family I spoke to yesterday were telling me, how in that moment, actually, your brain isn't really working particularly rationally, because you run in, you got a sack, you got your house, you're there, and you're thinking, what do I need? What do the kids want? And what's going to make me happy over this next few months if I lose my house? So, they told me they picked up a coffee machine because they love drinking coffee. The daughter who I spoke to, 11-year-old, unbelievable English. I think she wants to be an actress. I mean, I think she's going to do well because she's a great speaker. All she wanted is 2 books in English, so she could her favourite 2 books. They picked up some games for their son as well. But yeah, they're now living in a tiny little flat that a colleague had given them. But yeah, they said it was just a really difficult decision. But I saw them again on the road this morning, and they did get an extra 15 minutes. So I know they've gone in with a pickup truck and got as much as they could today. But they told me their house was built by a guy called Simon the Strong. So they reckon their house is going to be all right.
Yeah, I'm sure Simon, well, let's hope Simon lives up to his name. Fingers crossed. We'll check in again with you, Nick, but it's by no means a certainty that there's going to be an eruption from the sound of things, but it is a definite possibility, I'm afraid.
Would you ever go back if that had been the situation, if you were a resident of Grindavik now?
I would, because there are things that are irreplaceable. Ultimately, it's the photo albums, isn't it?
No, I mean, would you ever go back to live?
Oh, I'd go, well, I think the insurance would have a word to say about that, wouldn't they?
Ever the practical.
Well, I'm just thinking.
Simon the Strong, Jane the practical.